Welcome to the Peer Effect Postbag. I'm James Johnson, joined by Freddie Burley. We ask for your questions, and Freddie and I are going to tackle them together. These aren't theoretical case studies, it's the stuff keeping you up at 2 a.m. Let's get answering. So, welcome to the Peer Effect Postbag. This is where we answer your founder questions. I'm James Johnson.
And I'm Freddie Burley. Welcome. So, how have the last couple of weeks been?
Good. I've agreed to something that I never thought I'd agree to do.
Oh, always love it when someone starts like that. What are you doing?
I agreed to a Hyrox race.
Oh my God. So up until 2 weeks, like maybe 3 weeks ago, I'd never heard of Hyrox. And you're like the third or fourth person in the last couple of weeks that's told me that they're doing this.
Yeah.
Elaborate. Why?
Well, I'd stayed away from it. I've heard about it for a long time. I was like, this just feels like the next thing.
Fair.
Like it feels a little bit culty.
Yeah.
But a really good friend of mine had been doing it. And I used to go away for the weekend with friends, go and do half marathons. It actually was a really nice thing to do. Mm. And the more I was talking through them, I was like, this actually feels quite instinctive I want to focus on. So it's only an hour and a half of kind of commitment in terms of doing the race. That's not too crazy. It's an opportunity to go spend time with a friend and go cool places. They have different races in different places.
Yeah.
And it's quite functional fitness. But it does feel, as my friend said, so does this mean you have to work out with your top off at all times now? It was like...
That's the energy it gives.
It
really gives naked energy. It's like everyone looks unbelievable. They're so strong. Everyone almost looks like they've oiled up for the race as well whenever I see any of the pictures.
Totally. I went on a family holiday and it was a Danish resort, and as part of it they had this kind of training center for CrossFit at Hyrox, and I went down one day training session and I had to leave. I was so much the smallest. They were just huge Nordic men, all their tops off. Even the women were bigger than me. And I was I felt so intimidated.
So fair, you're braver than I am. I don't see this in my stars, but I love that for you.
Well, we'll see. I committed without realizing what it entails.
It's intense.
And I went and did a PT on Friday, and my trainer was like, do you know what you've agreed to? I was like, no. He goes, okay, let's just do one of the exercises then. I couldn't even do, there are 8 stations. I couldn't even do one station at the moment. So,
well, you're going to grow tons. I guess if you couldn't do one at the moment, then suddenly, I feel like when you commit to something that feels really hard, and at the beginning you're like, I can't do one, and then suddenly in a few weeks' time you can do 3 or 4. You'll grow loads, which will feel satisfying.
Yeah. Let's see. So maybe next podcast we're sitting here without my
exactly. You decided to do all podcast shirtless from now on. Brilliant. Viewings go up
or down.
Oh, nice.
Moving swiftly on. So we've got a great question here from Alex. How do I keep a sense of self in times of uncertainty?
This is actually the way I interpret this question is founders in most contexts of their life, it can be easy to be in performance mode. And what I mean by that is they can feel in their teams, in their co-founder dynamics, with their board, sometimes with their investors or even with their families, that they need to be in performance mode. And often times of uncertainty are when you're trying to create the future, or the current present feels very uncertain and changing a lot. And so you're kind of trying to grapple into what's real, or how do I force what I want to happen or manifest in the real world. And I often think about the opposite of performance being authenticity. But authenticity is much less, it's more of an input than it is an output. And so it's much less structured. It's like, by being authentic, I don't know what's going to come back at me. Whereas performance is often much more strategic. It's like, by doing these things, I am increasing the likelihood, I think, of something coming back at me. And I think it's incredibly important, especially when you're a founder or a creator or a builder, when you live so much in what is it that I'm creating in the future, to find the antidote or to find the opposite. So how do I also create intense times of authenticity, connection? Because often it manifests in different ways. So that authenticity and connection can come through your partnership. It could come from your relationship with your children, who are very good at getting humans into humbling present moment and It can come from doing hobbies that have no output. So you just do it because you love it. You do it for the sake of doing it, not because it's going to get you to the next level or because you get to show off or talk about it and kind of perform with the hobby. It can come from just like going like out in nature, or even forms of exercise that don't feel like you're pushing. They feel more like you do it because you love to do it. And I often think of a good signal of authenticity and staying connected to yourself is when you would describe while doing it that you loved it. It was net energy giving as opposed to energy taking. And sometimes performing can be energy taking, but it's almost like a service. You're doing it as sacrifice for something you want to build or create in the future. So coming kind of full circle on the question of how do I keep a sense of self in times of uncertainty? It's often how do you do things that you feel completely authentic, free, that you love to do, alongside things that you feel more like performance driven. That's how I see it.
It's not just about sort of nourishment then, or kind of recovery. It sounds like choosing things which really tie into your sense of who you are.
Mm-hmm. Completely. How do you do things that feel like an expression of yourself? And also, especially, there are other practices, right? Of like, how do I stay connected to what I genuinely feel and think, even when I'm aware I'm performing? So that could be reflective practices like journaling. That could be reflective practices like very vulnerable and honest conversations with people in your life where you're sharing what you're actually grappling with and what you're actually thinking, as opposed to having to come up with a certain response or feeling like the constantly kind of confident, stable, anchored version. It can be the version of you that's actually feeling really vulnerable and really uncertain and really unconfident, and spaces where you can just be and express that part of yourself. And whether that's therapy, coaching, your partner, like great friend, people you just don't have to perform for, you can be truthful with.
It feels though, let's say when you're under pressure or in a certain, there may be a tendency to really deprioritize that stuff. Like almost you said, like there's a sense of being your authentic self and being performance mode. It feels like there might be a real pressure to be like really lean into the performance mode in those times. Like I need to throw everything at this to make it work. How do you help yourself not do that?
I think it's when it becomes an and as opposed to an or. So sometimes we can think about this like completely split. It's like I'm either being authentic or I'm performing. And I think the more integrated version of that can be if you have to be more in kind of performance, like you're going through even like what we've been talking about around AI and companies changing and pivoting and founders having to lead through that sense of uncertainty. And they're like, everything in my life feels uncertain in my business and in the future and in my industry. How you stay connected to your sense of self amongst that can be how do you have spaces where you can be incredibly vulnerable so you can bring this is what I know to be true and this is what I don't know to be true. And that level of authenticity in the performance. I think what can be dangerous is when founders or humans are so disconnected from reality that they're communicating, but you don't feel it. So they're coming back to their teams and they're talking about like, this is where we're going and this is what's happening, but they don't speak to, and I know this can be really scary. And I know a lot of you will be feeling like nervous, or I know they can't speak to like the actual reality and experience of what's happening. And people feel it, and it's like when people act like robots, it can deter your trust for them because you're like, are you real? Like, do you actually know what's going on? Can you speak to the human experience of what's happening here? So I think it actually can make you much more efficient and effective when you can communicate authentically and in a performative and perform. So I don't know if does that resonate? Do you know what I mean?
I think there's a danger just leaning all the way into, say, it sounds like it's not an either or for a start.
Yeah.
It is an and. But also you're leaning too much into one thing. Let's say in that performance mode, you're either jumping to an action which is not thought through, or it sounds like you don't have these safe spaces to sort of filter your thoughts, be truly vulnerable. It's hard then to bring a slightly more distilled, better version of that back to your team. So either you're doing one or two things. Either you're presenting unfiltered thoughts to your team, which I think can be dangerous, and that's not being authentic. It's just distracting.
Yeah,
I think.
Completely.
Or it's about not acknowledging that you don't have any uncertainty and just going, we're going to do this without having had an opportunity to think it through, which I think is also dangerous.
Yeah.
So I can really see how it's an and, because one is you're giving yourself space to think these things through to a greater degree, but also you're leaving yourself you're protecting yourself so that the best version of you shows up, which gives you the best chance to think things through and be positive for your team and provide energy. Because if a low energy, uncertain, sort of tired, burnt out version of yourself shows up, that's also no good for the team. So it sounds like you can't have sustainable performance if you're not creating the space to be authentic.
Yeah, 100%. I really love how you've articulated that. And when we look at it in a kind of extreme example of not maintaining any sense of connection to yourself and moving through uncertainty or change is when people suddenly burn out, or they suddenly get like a really intense acute chronic health condition, or it all explodes in their co-founder dynamic because they've been kind of performing but not in reality, and they've missed lots of signals and cues, or their product is actually completely offbeat because they haven't been as connected to their customers, not staying connected to yourself, I also think, is not staying connected to reality. And so if you're so in the fantasy of where you're going and what you're doing and what you're creating that you've missed the reality, that's blocked awareness, and that lacks wisdom. So your life will show you the cracks if you also don't connect in. And for some people it can look like a midlife crisis or any stage of life crisis, where you suddenly feel really depressed or completely burnt out, et cetera, et cetera.
I think the pain doesn't necessarily be even felt by you. What I heard also there is a sense of not dealing with the reality of it means you may be making decisions based on the business that you would like to have rather than the business that you do have. So it's pushing ahead with hires that you shouldn't be making, or making some investment decisions that you shouldn't be making, or like not making cuts that maybe you should make, or changing a key system or changing key people. It's kind of 1,000%. Living in slight denial and a bubble going, oh, it's all fine.
Exactly. That is exactly it. That's exactly it. And the more extreme you become, the more extremely you avoid, often the more extremely you get woken up by something, which in a way is kind of beautiful, because it's kind of, I think, life trying to rebalance us. But it can be quite brutal.
Yeah, I think I suppose my takeaway from this is just, it's it's kind of the space for you to be authentic and nurture yourself and think and sort of be vulnerable and really like hone yourself and hone your thoughts allows you to lean into performance over the long term. And so it's not an or, although it can feel like it at times, but it very much is an and. Yeah,
agreed. Amazing.
Well, that's it for another episode. We will see you guys next week for another one. See you then, and happy scaling.